Well, one of the reasons I got into psychology to begin with was
Mhm.
other than just absolutely being fascinated by the whole field, right? And
Mhm.
just what makes people do what they do and how the brain works and all of these types of dynamics and motivators.
Mhm.
I loved that the field was so broad that you could never get bored because there was always like a way to pivot and try
Mhm.
something different. And
Mhm.
so after many years in the therapy world and doing a lot of child and adolescent and family and then middle-aged adults, I really got the coaching bug, really wanted to move into that area. And, family is just something that was heavily instilled in my family. And having the opportunity to help preserve family systems as they grow their legacy and as they build these businesses. By this time, I had fallen in love with business myself and growing my own practice and, things like that, and just really loved both the business aspect and the psychology aspect. And people have asked me before, like, well, what does a psychologist have to do with like business? And I'm like, everything. It's all people dynamics. And you bring yourself to the office. And as you're saying, like non-family members are impacted by the family members. And there's more of a tight-knit community often. Uh, we come out and like your older brother or your younger brother is now your boss and your co-owners, but he owns more. And maybe you wanted a shot at being the boss, but dad still thinks the firstborn son should get there's all these underlying dynamics going on. And if you don't look at those, you don't really get to the source of the issues. And then when I saw families literally breaking up over business and shutting each other out and suing each other, and that's where my love of family was like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. And just knowing that I could help and help not just there, but like, how do you develop leadership? How do you understand why you can't confront an employee on something? How do you compartmentalize the fact that, especially in these family businesses, I went to high school with this person and now they're my employee and now I have to fire them. And then just all the complications that come with that, but also being able to see all the beauty in that it's worth preserving and knowing how important family businesses are to our communities and how much they give back and to our economy and to their own legacy. I just felt like my angle was really different and could provide some long-standing changes to help everyone thrive. We bring our own stories into the room, no matter who you are.
Mhm.
Whatever your history is, we bring our own stories. And some of that's our history, and some of that's also like what happened on the commute on the way in the door.
Mhm.
And then we project those same stories on others. So
Mhm.
having ourselves take a step back and kind of examine that lens is really important. Really loved the way you said that about holding space to be in the present. And,
Mhm.
I think that's especially important with families because we have such a long history together and
Mhm.
such an intimate, nobody knows what it was like to grow up in your household except for those people
Mhm.
and the sharing of stories and the sharing of history. And one of the things I talk about is in the family business, learning how to see that family member as the professional that they are, right? And I always use the example, like I have two older brothers, right? Two older
Mhm.
brothers and a younger sister, but especially with my brothers, right? Two older brothers picking on their younger sister growing up, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And when I see them, they're not like, oh, there's Dr. Donna, the psychologist, and the this and the that. They're like, oh, there's my too sensitive little sister, right?
Yeah.
And we get along great. but they're not seeing me in that lens. They're seeing
Right.
me as the kid who grew up with them.
Uh-huh.
And now you put that into a workplace, and it's often hard for us to see our family members in their professional identity. And
Mm-hmm.
how do you learn to do that? How do you learn to switch hats at
Mm-hmm.
work? And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I teach too is when they're communicating, like making it blatantly clear who you're communicating as. And so I had been doing this kind of as a talk. I'd come up with these 5 principles of what I call wise leadership, and it's wise leadership for women. And one of the takes on this was like, we are not claiming leadership for ourselves. And I really mean claiming, just really embodying, like, I am a leader. And that doesn't mean CEO of a company. It could be CEO of your family, it could be president of your PTA. There's so many ways that women show up in leadership, but we have a very circumscribed perspective on what it means to be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And so, starting with just really claiming it, and then choosing how we want to lead, and that it doesn't have to be like anyone else, and it doesn't have to be the masculine model that we've seen. And so creating these 5 principles of wise leadership in the first part of the book. And then in the second part, really diving into the things that block us and get in the way, like self-sabotage and imposter syndrome and things like that. And then in the third part of the book, talking about how do we implement this? What does this look like in the world around us when we start living like this?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I did with the book, as a psychologist, I know we learn on multiple levels, and I know we need messages repeated and repeated differently and over and over. So what I did was I created a system. And so I started with the book, but then at the end of each chapter is a list of basically self-coaching exercises that you could do. Because one of the things was I wanted to reach more women, and I only have so many hours in my day to coach people. So this was
Right.
another way, hey, get the book. And there are practical coaching exercises that you can begin doing right away. But then also there's this workbook to help you work through it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is a guided meditation, visualization and hypnosis album that goes with each chapter. So each chapter helps you ingrain these lessons that you're being taught and helps you
Mm-hmm.
visualize yourself in that way.